Wow, this is amazing. And I'm truly blessed to be standing here and giving a TEDx talk for all of you wonderful people. All of you wonderful people who do happen to be staring at me right now, which makes sense. I am the one on stage. It'll just make things a bit awkward in a second here because I hate to do it, but I have to do it. Can someone take a picture of me? Anyone, really? Make it more convenient. How about right in front of the slide? Okay, just make sure you get my... Yikes. Not my best picture. Do you mind taking another one? Sorry. Okay, better. Now all I have to do is touch up the brightness and sharpen the picture. Maybe out of filter, but Clarendon or Gingham? Okay, Clarendon. Now time to think of a caption. Excited to share my ideas. Perfect. Now time to post. Okay, good. Where was I? Hello, my name is Krista Westheimer. Why is no one liking my picture? It's been 17 seconds and not a single one of my 1,003 followers has liked my picture. It's been 32 seconds, one like but no comments. I can't look. Take it away. You see, I used to be that girl. You know exactly what I'm talking about. The girl who would always be on her phone. You see, I'd be discreet about it. I wouldn't be on my phone during dinners or conversations or classes, but when I got home, it was hello Instagram and hello Snapchat. It became an obsession. I would spend hours in order to perfect the picture-perfect post with the perfect edits and the perfect caption. And once that picture was perfect and posted, I would constantly refresh my notifications to see if I got a new like or a new comment. I was that girl. I was the self-obsessed girl as I tried to create an online life better than my real one. I was the jealous girl when someone got more likes than me. And I was the lonely girl when I would see a picture of a party that I wasn't invited to. So because I felt as if I was being controlled by something so trivial and app nonetheless, I decided to make changes within my own life. And I passed around a lot of different ideas to successfully initiate this change at first. The first thing that I tried was placing time limits on myself to about an hour of social media usage a day. But when that inevitably didn't work due to my obvious lack of self-control, I decided to change something different. I decided to place intangible boundaries on myself by telling myself that I couldn't be on my phone the first thing in the morning and the last thing at night. But when that didn't work either, I knew that I had to quit social media cold turkey in order to effectively change my habits. So from November 7th to December 7th, I went on a 1-month-long social media fast. And because of how often and how much I would use Instagram and Snapchat and even Facebook, this fast was really difficult for me at first. But once I got past resisting the urge to check my notifications and to check my posts, I had several revelations. On my social media fast, the first thing that I realized was that the number of likes I received literally, and I rarely use that word, mean nothing. They literally mean nothing. And a year ago, you would have had to force me to say this exact same statement because I didn't believe it. In fact, I staked my entire self-worth and my entire self-confidence on this number under a picture I had posted. A higher number of likes just felt better. A higher number of likes boosted me to a higher status amongst my peers, or so I thought. My very first Instagram post, for example, received 67 likes. And me, being a freshman in high school who hadn't been exposed to anyone else's social media accounts, felt pretty good. 67 different people decided to take time out of their day and double tap my picture and send me some gratification. But then I began to scroll around, and my friends and my peers were getting 100 likes, triple digits. So my mere 67 likes felt really small in comparison. So I really thought out my captions and my edits next time, and I garnered some followers over the next couple months, and I posted again. And this time I got 115 likes. And I thought, yes, I did it. I reached my goal, triple digits. But then I began to scroll around, and my friends and my peers were getting 150 likes. So I repeated the exact same process again, and then I got 150 likes in a couple months. And then I began to scroll around, and you can probably guess what happened next. It's a pretty predictable story, but my friends were getting 200 likes. And when I achieved that next goal in a couple of months, I began to scroll around, and I continued to set my goal to a higher number, and then a higher number, and then a higher number. And spoiler alert, if your goal in life is to get a higher number of likes, no number will ever be high enough, whether that's 100, 150, 200, 300, 400, 500. I'll say it again. If your goal is to get a higher number in likes, no number will ever be high enough, because I was there watching the number of likes I received like a hawk. And don't get me wrong, when I reached my goal, I felt happy. I received the temporary satisfaction of feeling liked and happy. But then a week later, those numbers didn't provide me any true, tangible self-worth or self-confidence, because they were and are just numbers, digital and tangible numbers on a screen that have no impact on my life unless I give them the power to have an impact. And before my social media fast, I gave these numbers that power. They didn't take it from me, and it wasn't forced. I single-handedly gave them this power by actively caring about them. And in doing so, I single-handedly allowed for something that I couldn't possibly control me. And there's a really science-packed explanation for why I did this, something revolving around dopamine and the psychological nature about social media as a whole. But I like to explain my social media submission in a bit more relatable terms. I realized that for the first time in our modern society, we've created for ourselves an empirical way to measure popularity. And everyone inherently, whether we like to admit it or not, we like to be popular on some level, just a little bit. We like to be liked by those around us. So when the creators of all things, social media, created this thing that we call likes, they created an empirical way, a quantifiable way to compare ourselves against our peers. They created a competition. And I, like any other student or athlete, wanted to win that competition. But to win a competition, you have to compete. And to compete in a competition, you have to actually care about the award at hand. But does anybody know what happens when you win a competition? Sure, you get a trophy. And you put that trophy on your trophy shelf along with all the other trophies that you want just for display, and it sits there. And your life remains practically exactly the same as it was before you won that competition. So I was stuck in this place where I was trying to win a trophy that not only didn't exist, but a trophy I would never achieve, because the number of likes, i.e. the finish line, kept moving backwards with every single step that I took. So as you can imagine, this left me feeling really poorly about my self-esteem and my self-worth, because I was basing these ideologies off of what other people thought about me. And I began to observe how this mindset began to translate to every other facet of my life. So in taking my social media fasts, I gradually uncovered the meaninglessness of likes. I would live each day without logging in, without checking my feed, without checking my likes. And in doing so, I would gradually take back the power that I once gave these numbers. Because I'd be forced to wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and receive gratification not from a number on a screen, and not from my peers, but from God and from myself. And that felt really real and empowering and palpably sufficient. And the second thing that I learned on my social media fast is that social media can be a huge distraction in a really big way. So remember that really science fact explanation that I kind of skipped over earlier? Yeah. Well, it becomes really important in this next part, because essentially what most researchers are agreeing on is that social media is addictive. And that's because when we're logged onto social media, we get these rushes of dopamine, which is an organic chemical that causes us to seek out other things. So when we're logged onto social media, we're seeking out likes, we're seeking out comments, we're seeking out notifications. And when we get one of those things, we feel pleasure, we feel happy. So because we received a positive feedback, we get more rushes of dopamine, which leads to more seeking, which leads to more pleasure, which leads to more dopamine, more seeking, more pleasure, more dopamine, more seeking, more pleasure. And before we know it, we're stuck in the cycle of addiction where we're constantly checking our phones to experience that exact same high that we had earlier. We become addicted. And to not be addicted, we have to fight against our own body, which is really, really hard. So before my social media fast, this addictive nature of social media played 3 unique roles in my life. The first role that it played was the productivity killer version of social media. Rather than working on my college essays, for example, I would take a break, as I would call it, and spend a few moments on social media. But these few moments turned into a few hours really quickly as the dopamine rush began. And I was realizing that during this time period, I was less productive. In fact, I was devaluing my time completely. I was wasting away a valuable gift that we've all been given, time, on my phone, doing absolutely nothing, when I could have been using that exact same amount of my time educating myself or making community-changing impacts. And this addictive nature and this distracting nature of social media, it wasn't just present when I was alone. It was prevalent when I was with people too. When I'd be surrounded by my peers, I'd constantly be approached by the needy and narcissistic version of social media. The version that would convince me that it was more important than everyone and everything else around me. All too often, I'd be having lunch, for example, with another person. But I wouldn't be with that other person. No, I'd be with the people on my phone. All too often, I'd be at a party, or let's be more realistic, a study group, and I wouldn't be with the people there. I would be with the people on my phone. I would be the filmer. I would be taking the highlights and sending it to my followers. All too often, I would be distracted. And what this did, it distracted me from the moments that were quickly fleeting with a thing that could have been done at a different point and at a different time. And then the third version that I would constantly be attacked by and approached by would be the version that you saw earlier, the vain version. The version that would always convince me that it was more important, and the version that would always convince me to beg someone else to take a picture of me. The version that you saw exactly earlier today. Because we would be at an event earlier today, and we'd be having no fun whatsoever, and yet on my feed you probably see a picture like this, with a caption that read, "Best night of my life with the greatest people ever, #blessed." Because I'd be distracted from the real world with the idea of creating a better world and showing it off. And in this moment, in taking this social media fast, I became less distracted. These distractions, productivity killing distractions, needy and narcissistic distractions, vain distractions completely dissipated. I would dedicate my time to real world issues rather than meaningless dilemmas. I would dedicate my energy to being present wherever I was, with whomever I was with. I would dedicate my actions to making my atmospheres enjoyable in my real world and not just my digital one. I became less distracted because I clicked delete on the apps that were distracting me. And then the third thing that I learned on my social media fast is that social media can be a real platform for real judgment against real people. I can vividly remember the way that I would scroll through my feed. What is she wearing? Another selfie just to get more people to tell her that she's pretty? Wow, that's revealing. Why did they get back together again? My thoughts were untainted, uncensored, as I subconsciously formed judgments and opinions on people that I've never interacted with or even met. Because social media sets up this platform for comparison on so many levels, it can be really easy to generate negative opinions on someone, to generate these false feelings of happiness. It can be really easy to bring other people down to make yourself feel good. It was really easy for me to form a negative opinion on someone simply because of what they posted. So during and after my social media fast, I no longer had the platform to judge these people without their knowledge and without their consent. Because when I judged them subconsciously, I made the choice. I encouraged a behavior that made me a less open-minded person and a more hypercritical hypocrite. So now after all this, you're probably thinking that I'm a social media hater. And you may even think that once my 1 month time period ended, that I clicked delete on all my apps because social media is super bad and really destructive. But that's not what happened at all. On the contrary, the second that my 1 month time period ended, I logged back in. I logged back in because I realized that social media is extremely beneficial, and I think in our modern society it can even be necessary. Because while I was uncovering all the negative things about social media, I was also uncovering the crucial benefits. Social media can allow for networking opportunities, for example. During my social media fast, I had a lot of college interviews approaching me, and I so desperately wanted to thoroughly complete that research on my interviewer by logging onto LinkedIn or Facebook and checking them out. But I couldn't because I was logged off. Social media allows for edification and uplifting. During my social media fast, I so desperately wanted to reach out to the people that I didn't see on a daily basis, that I didn't interact with on a daily basis, and send them a kind message, make their day if possible. But I couldn't because I was logged off. Social media allows for brand exposure and marketing materials and greater friendships and newer connections and so many other positive things. And if we used it strictly for those positive things, I don't think we'd have a problem today. And I think our social media addiction would actually be a good thing. But it's not a good thing, or at least it wasn't for me, because I took this neutral platform, neither inherently good or inherently bad, and I used it in a really negative way. Because at the end of the day, social media is a tool, and we as the users of that tool have the option to use it for something really powerful. But we also have the option to use it for something really destructive as well. But I have a feeling that we've heard this message before. I have a feeling that whether it's from our parents or our teachers or some random online psychologist, that we've been told to use social media better. We've been told to use social media differently. I can assure you that I've heard this message before. And I can also assure you that I never listened. So you have a choice. You have the choice to ignore me completely. I won't take it personally, I promise. But you also have the opportunity to mix it up and take this message and put it to real action in your life. So if you want to learn how to use social media better, I strongly encourage you to take a social media fast, a 1-month-long social media fast, just as I once did. Because I thoroughly believe that when you return to social media, if you choose to return, you'll have uncovered a greater platform and a greater appreciation for the platform that we can use for powerful impacts within our community. Because this social media fast, it didn't just change the way that I interacted on social media, it changed the way that I live my life. Because I was no longer basing it off of likes, my peers, or a device. So now, I'm confident that rather than posting and scrutinizing over a picture that I forced someone else to take, I'd rather just take a picture with all of y'all here today to really commemorate this moment. So smile. Perfect. Thank you.